He was a millionaire who disguised himself as a beggar and entered a luxury restaurant. But no one could have imagined what the poor waitress would do next. Get ready for a story that will move you and make you think. The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble floors of Anderson Tower, but Ethan Anderson barely noticed. He moved through his corner office like a man on autopilot, his tailored Armani suit fitting perfectly over shoulders that carried the weight of an empire he'd never asked for. The quarterly reports. Mr. Anderson. His assistant, Margaret, placed a stack of documents on his mahogany desk with practiced efficiency. Your father wants to review them before the board meeting at 3. Ethan nodded without looking up from his laptop screen, where profit margins and expansion projections blurred together in an endless sea of numbers. 28 years old, and this was his life. Spreadsheets, board meetings, and the constant pressure to live up to the Anderson legacy. Tell me something, Margaret, he said suddenly, his fingers pausing over the keyboard. When's the last time you ate at one of our restaurants? She blinked, clearly caught off guard. Well, the Golden Rose is a bit out of my price range, sir. Right. He leaned back in his leather chair, studying the woman who'd worked for his family for over a decade. What about the others? Surely we have something more accessible. The chain locations are nice. Mr. Anderson, though I mostly cook at home. The honesty in her voice struck him oddly. Here was someone who helped run an empire of restaurants, yet couldn't afford to eat at half of them. When had that stopped bothering him? His phone buzzed, a text from his assistant manager at the Riverside location. Minor incident with a customer today, handled appropriately. Something about the message nagged at him. Margaret, cancel my lunch meeting, I'm going out. 20 minutes later, Ethan pulled his Tesla into the parking lot of Anderson's Riverside, one of their mid-tier locations. He rarely visited the chain restaurants. That was middle management's job. But today felt different. Today, something was pulling him here. The restaurant bustled with the lunch crowd, families and office workers filling the booths. Everything looked clean, efficient, profitable, just the way his father liked it. Mr. Anderson, the manager, a thin man named Roberts, practically jogged over. What an unexpected pleasure. Is there something specific you'd like to review? Just observing, Ethan said, scanning the dining room. What was this incident you texted about? Roberts shifted uncomfortably. Oh, that. Nothing major. Just some homeless guy trying to cause trouble. My staff handled it perfectly. What kind of trouble? He came in asking for food, claiming he was hungry, obviously trying to scam us. When we told him to leave, he got argumentative. We had to be firm. Ethan's chest tightened. Firm how? Well, you know how these people can be. They think just because we serve food, we owe them something. My server, Jessica, I think. She was way too soft on him, but I set her straight. Told her we're not a charity. The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. Suddenly, he was 8 years old again, standing in his mother's garden while she explained why she always carried extra sandwiches in her purse. Compassion isn't weakness, sweetheart. Her voice echoed in his memory. It's what makes us human. Remember that when you're older, when people tell you that business is just business, people matter more than profit. Where's the man now? Ethan asked quietly. Gone, thank God, though he'll probably try another location. These types always do. Ethan excused himself and walked outside, his hands shaking slightly. In the alley behind the restaurant, he found what he was looking for: an overturned trash can, scattered food containers, and a torn jacket caught on the dumpster's edge. The drive home was a blur by the time he reached the Anderson estate. His father was waiting in the study, surrounded by leather-bound books that were more for show than reading. You missed the board meeting, Thomas Anderson said, without looking up from his brandy. Roberts called, said you were asking questions about some vagrant. His name wasn't Vagrant, Dad. It was human being. Thomas finally looked at him, his steel gray eyes cold. Don't tell me you're going to start with this bleeding heart nonsense again. We've been through this. Have we? Because I don't remember having a conversation about throwing hungry people out of our restaurants. It's called running a business, Ethan. Something your mother never understood. The words were designed to cut. And they did. Soft hearts make for weak leaders. Mom's heart wasn't weak. It was strong enough to care about people. And where did that get her? Thomas set down his glass with enough force to make the crystal ring. dead at 42 from stress, trying to save every lost cause in the city. The accusation hung in the air like poison. Ethan felt something crack inside his chest, something that had been building pressure for years. That's not what killed her, and you know it. What killed her was caring too much about people who didn't matter. Don't make the same mistake. That night, alone in his penthouse apartment, Ethan stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Somewhere down there, in those streets his father saw as profit margins and demographics, real people were struggling. People like the man who'd been thrown out of their restaurant for the crime of being hungry. He thought about his mother's gentle hands tending her garden, her patient voice reading bedtime stories, her tears when she watched the news and saw suffering she couldn't fix. She'd tried to teach him that wealth came with responsibility, that privilege meant obligation. But after she died, Thomas had systematically dismantled every charitable program she'd established, every community outreach initiative she'd championed. "Business is business," he'd said. "Sentiment is luxury we can't afford." Ethan pulled out his phone and scrolled through the contacts until he found what he was looking for. A private investigator his college roommate had used during a messy divorce. "Mr. Hendricks, this is Ethan Anderson. I need to hire you for something unusual." An hour later, the plan was set. If he really wanted to know who his employees were, if he wanted to understand what his mother had tried to teach him, he needed to see it from the other side. He needed to become invisible. The next morning, Ethan stood in his walk-in closet, surrounded by thousands of dollars worth of designer clothes. But today, he was looking for something else entirely. In the back, behind suits he hadn't worn in years, he found what he needed. Old jeans from college, worn sneakers, a faded t-shirt. Looking in the mirror, he barely recognized himself. The transformation would need to be more complete, but it was a start. "Time to meet the real world," he murmured to his reflection. His phone buzzed with a text from his father. "Board meeting at 9. Don't be late." For the first time in his adult life, Ethan Anderson turned off his phone and walked away from everything he'd ever known. The game was about to begin. 3 days later, Ethan barely recognized the man staring back at him from the bathroom mirror of a cheap motel room. The private investigator had done his job well. Fake stubble courtesy of professional makeup, clothes that smelled authentically of the streets, and a backstory that would hold up under casual questioning. "Zane Mitchell," he practiced, his voice rougher than usual. "Just looking for a chance, you know." The Golden Rose sat like a jewel in the heart of downtown, its gilded facade gleaming under the afternoon sun. Zane, had passed this flagship restaurant countless times in his Tesla, but he'd never really seen it. Now, approaching on foot with holes in his sneakers and $3 in his pocket, the marble steps looked like they led to another world. The brass doors were polished to mirror perfection, reflecting a version of himself he'd never imagined, a homeless man begging for scraps at his own restaurant. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so terrifying. "Here goes nothing," he whispered, and pushed through the doors. The hostess looked up from her podium with the kind of smile that froze the moment she took in his appearance. "I'm sorry, but Please," Zane interrupted, letting his voice crack slightly. "I'm not looking for trouble, I haven't eaten in 2 days, and I was hoping maybe you had some bread or something left over from lunch service." The smile disappeared entirely. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. This is a private establishment." "I understand that, miss, I really do. But I'm not asking for a handout. I can work for it. Wash dishes, sweep floors, whatever you need." Other diners were starting to notice the commotion. Ethan could see them turning in their seats, some pulling out phones. This was exactly what he'd expected, but living it felt different than imagining it. "Security!" the hostess called, her voice sharp with authority. "Wait!" The voice came from behind the hostess station, soft but firm. "What's going on here?" Ethan turned to see a young woman emerging from the dining room, carrying a tray of empty plates. She couldn't have been more than 25. With dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and eyes that held both exhaustion and kindness, her uniform was impeccable, but he noticed the way she favored her left foot, probably from standing all day. "This man is disrupting our customers," the hostess said. "I've called security." The woman, her name tag read Emily, set down her tray and really looked at Zane. Not through him, not past him, but at him, as if he were a person worth seeing. "Are you hungry?" she asked simply. The question caught him off guard. When was the last time someone had asked him that with genuine concern? "Yes, ma'am. Very." "Emily, what are you doing?" the hostess hissed. "Mr. Richards specifically said." "Mr. Richards isn't here right now," Emily interrupted, never breaking eye contact with Zane. "And last I checked, showing basic human decency wasn't against company policy." She gestured toward a small table near the kitchen doors. "Sit, I'll get you something." Zane hesitated. This wasn't what he'd expected. He'd come here to test his employees, to see how they treated the less fortunate. He'd expected to be thrown out, maybe roughed up a little. He hadn't expected kindness. "Are you sure? I don't want to get you in trouble." Emily's smile was tired but genuine. "Let me worry about that," as he sat at the designated table. Zane watched Emily disappear into the kitchen. The other diners had mostly returned to their meals, though he caught a few still staring. The hostess kept glancing at him like he might bolt with the silverware. 5 minutes later, Emily returned with a plate that made his stomach actually growl. Pan-seared salmon, roasted vegetables, and what looked like artisan bread. This wasn't leftover scraps. This was a full meal from their regular menu. "I can't pay for this," Zane said, overwhelmed by the gesture. "I'm not asking you to." Emily set a glass of ice water beside the plate. "Everyone deserves a good meal." "Why?" The question slipped out before he could stop it. Emily paused, her hand still on the water glass. "Because you're a person. Because you asked politely. Because," she shrugged, "because it's the right thing to do." Before Zane could respond, a sharp voice cut through the restaurant's ambient noise. "Miss Turner, what exactly do you think you're doing?" Brian Richards strode across the dining room like a man on a mission. His face flushed with anger. Ethan recognized him immediately. The Golden Rose's general manager, a company man through and through. "I'm serving a customer," Emily replied evenly, though Zane noticed her hands tremble slightly. "This vagrant is not a customer. He's a liability," Richard's voice carried across the restaurant, ensuring everyone could hear. "And you're about to be an unemployed liability if you don't get him out of here right now." "He's not causing any trouble," Emily said, lifting her chin. "He asked for food, and I gave it to him. That's what restaurants do. Restaurants serve paying customers, not street trash looking for handouts." The words hit Zane like a slap. He'd heard his father use similar language in private meetings, reducing human beings to problems to be managed. But hearing it directed at him, seeing the way Emily flinched at the cruelty, made it real in a way that boardroom discussions never had. "I should go," Zane said, starting to stand. "No." Emily's voice was quiet but firm. "Finish your meal." "Emily," Richards warned, "you have a sick mother and a disabled brother to think about. Are you really willing to lose this job over some homeless drunk?" The threat was clear, and Emily's face went pale, but she didn't back down. "He's not drunk. He's hungry. And yes, I'm willing to risk my job to feed a hungry person." Zane felt something shift inside his chest. This woman, this underpaid, overworked waitress, was risking everything to show him basic human kindness. When was the last time someone had stood up for him? When was the last time someone had stood up for anyone, without expecting something in return? "Ma'am," Zane said softly, "I don't want you to lose your job because of me." Emily looked down at him, and for a moment, he saw something in her eyes that he'd never seen directed at him before. Protective fierceness. "Some things are more important than jobs." "Not in my restaurant," Richard snapped. "Security should be here any minute, Emily. You can finish your shift, but consider this your final warning. One more stunt like this, and you're gone." He stormed back toward his office, leaving Emily and Zane alone in the suddenly quiet dining room. The other customers had returned to their conversations, but Zane could feel their eyes on him. "I'm sorry," Emily said, sitting down across from him. "I'm sorry he spoke to you that way. You don't need to apologize for him." Zane took a bite of the salmon. It was incredible. Probably the best meal he'd had in weeks. "This is amazing, by the way. Chef Martinez is the best," Emily's smile returned, though it was strained. "He's the one who made sure you got a proper portion." "Why did you do this, really?" Emily was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing patterns on the tablecloth. My father used to say that you can judge a person's character by how they treat people who can do nothing for them. I guess I want to be the kind of person he'd be proud of. Your father sounds like a wise man. He was. Something flickered across her face. Pain, maybe, or loss. He died 7 years ago. I'm sorry. He was a chef. He would have loved seeing someone enjoy a good meal, regardless of whether they could pay for it. Zane finished the salmon in thoughtful silence. Everything about this interaction was wrong. He was supposed to be testing his employees, catching them in acts of discrimination or incompetence. Instead, he'd found someone who embodied everything his mother had tried to teach him about compassion and human dignity. Thank you, he said finally. Not just for the food, for treating me like I matter. You do matter, Emily said simply. Everyone matters. As Zane stood to leave, Emily pressed something into his hand. A business card for a local shelter and a $20 bill. Just in case, she said. Promise me you'll be safe out there. Walking back onto the street. Zane felt like the world had tilted on its axis. He'd come here to judge his employees, and instead found himself being judged by someone with more integrity in her little finger than he had in his entire body. His phone buzzed with angry texts from his father, but for the first time in years, Ethan Anderson didn't care about disappointing Thomas Anderson. He had to see Emily Turner again. Zane returned to the Golden Rose 3 days later, during the slower afternoon shift. He'd spent those intervening days walking the streets of his own city, seeing it through eyes he'd never opened before. The homeless encampments under the highway overpass, the soup kitchen lines that stretched around blocks, the way people averted their gaze when someone in tattered clothes approached. It was an education his Harvard MBA had never provided. Emily was wiping down tables when he walked in, her movements efficient despite the obvious fatigue in her shoulders. The lunch rush had ended, leaving the restaurant in that peaceful lull between services. She looked up as the door chimed, and her face brightened with genuine surprise. Zane, you came back? Hope that's okay, he said, suddenly nervous. I know Mr. Richards wasn't exactly thrilled with me last time. He's at corporate today, besides. Emily gestured to an empty booth by the window. You're always welcome here, at least as far as I'm concerned. Settling into the worn vinyl seat, Zane watched Emily pour him a cup of coffee without being asked. The simple gesture touched him more than it should have. How are you holding up? She asked, sliding into the seat across from him. I've been worried. Worried about me. Why? Emily shrugged, but her eyes were serious. The streets aren't safe, especially at night and winter's coming. The concern in her voice was so genuine it made his chest tight. When was the last time anyone had worried about him as a person, rather than as an asset or a disappointment? I'm managing, he said. The shelter you recommended helped a lot, thank you for that. Good. Emily relaxed slightly. What's your story, Zane? I mean, you don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but you seem different from most of the guys who come through here. Panic fluttered in his chest. He'd prepared for this question, but looking into Emily's open, trusting face made lying feel like a sin. Lost my job about 6 months ago, he said, sticking to the script the private investigator had helped him create. Couldn't make rent? Got evicted? Pride kept me from asking for help until it was too late. What kind of work did you do? Management? Nothing too exciting. He changed the subject quickly. What about you? Have you always worked here? 3 years now. Emily's fingers traced the rim of her coffee mug. It's steady work, and the tips help with, well, everything. Your family. Emily's expression grew complicated. My mom's been sick for a while. Multiple sclerosis. Some days are better than others, but she needs a lot of care. And then there's my brother Logan. Older or younger? Younger, he's 15. Emily's face softened with obvious affection. He's autistic, pretty high functioning, but he needs routine, stability. School is hard for him sometimes. Zane felt a stab of guilt. Here was Emily, barely older than him, carrying responsibilities that would crush most people, and she'd still found it in her heart to feed a stranger. That's a lot to handle on your own. We manage. Emily's smile was tired but proud. Logan's actually amazing. He has this incredible memory for recipes. Sometimes I think he knows more about cooking than I do. Did he learn that from your father, the chef you mentioned? Emily's expression flickered, pain crossing her features so quickly Zane almost missed it. Yeah, Dad used to bring Logan to work sometimes, let him help in the kitchen. Logan was only 8 when Dad died, but he remembers everything. What happened, if you don't mind me asking? Emily was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the busy street. Kitchen accident. Fire. They said it was Dad's fault, that he was careless with the equipment. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. But that's not... Dad was the most careful person I ever knew. He'd worked in kitchens for 20 years without a single incident. Zane's blood went cold. Where did it happen? A place called Anderson House. It was this upscale restaurant downtown, really exclusive. Dad had just gotten promoted to head chef. Emily's laugh was bitter. Biggest break of his career, he called it. 3 weeks later, he was dead. The coffee cup slipped in Zane's hand, hot liquid splashing across the table. Emily immediately grabbed napkins, dabbing at the spill while he sat frozen. Anderson House. He remembered that restaurant. It had been one of their first major acquisitions. Purchased right before his mother died. There had been some problems during the renovation, delays and cost overruns that had infuriated his father. Sorry, he managed. Sorry, just clumsy. It's okay. Emily finished cleaning up the spill, her movements automatic. I shouldn't have brought it up. It's ancient history. No, I'm sorry for your loss. That must have been devastating. The worst part was the investigation. Emily's voice was steady, but Zane could see the old pain in her eyes. They barely looked into it. Just decided Dad had made some mistake with the gas lines and moved on. Case closed. You don't believe that? I know my father. He was meticulous, obsessive about safety. He'd check every piece of equipment twice before he'd even turn on a stove. Emily shook her head. But what did it matter what I believed? I was just his 20-year-old daughter. Nobody listened to grieving kids. Zane felt sick. He wanted to tell her she was right, that there had been problems with the kitchen equipment that his father had decided to ignore. He wanted to promise her that he'd look into it, that he'd find the truth, but he couldn't, not without revealing who he was. And somehow that felt like it would destroy this fragile connection they'd built. So you've been taking care of your family ever since. Mom tried to work for a while, but the MS got worse. Logan needed someone consistent, someone who understood his routines. Emily straightened her shoulders. We're doing okay, really. The insurance money helped, and I make decent tips here most days. Insurance money. Life insurance payout. It wasn't much. Dad was young, healthy. Nobody expects a 35-year-old to die in a kitchen fire. Emily's smile was forced, but it was enough to keep us afloat while I figured things out. The weight of Emily's sacrifice hit Zane like a physical blow. She'd given up everything. College, probably dreams of her own, to hold her family together after a tragedy that his family's negligence had caused. You're remarkable, he said softly. Emily blushed, clearly uncomfortable with the compliment. I'm just doing what anyone would do. No, you're not. Most people would have crumbled under that kind of pressure. Most people wouldn't feed strangers when they're barely scraping by themselves. Dad always said that kindness multiplies. The more you give away, the more you have. Emily's smile became genuine again. I like to think he's right. Before Zane could respond, the restaurant door burst open and a teenage boy bounded in, his backpack askew and his face flushed with excitement. Guess what happened at school today? Logan. Emily's face lit up completely. What are you doing here? School doesn't end for another hour. Early dismissal, teacher conference day. Logan's gaze landed on Zane, and his expression grew curious, but not afraid. Who's this? This is my friend Zane. Zane. This is my brother Logan. Logan studied Zane with intense brown eyes, then stuck out his hand with formal precision. Nice to meet you, Zane. Are you homeless? Logan? Emily looked mortified. What? It's a reasonable question. His clothes suggest economic hardship. And Emily only makes friends with people who need help. Zane couldn't help but smile. It's okay. And yes, Logan, I am homeless. That's terrible. Did you know that there are over 580,000 homeless people in America, but only about 35% of them are unsheltered, which means... Logan, Emily interrupted gently. Maybe Zane doesn't want a statistics lecture right now. Actually, I find it fascinating, Zane said, and meant it. You seem to know a lot about this stuff. Logan beamed. I research things that interest me. Homelessness is interesting because it's a solvable problem that we choose not to solve. There are more empty houses in America than homeless people. Logan wants to be a social worker when he grows up, Emily said proudly. Or a chef, Logan added. Like Dad was. I remember all his recipes. Want to hear one? For the next hour, Zane listened to Logan recite recipes with perfect precision, watched Emily help him with homework, and felt something inside his chest grow warm and unfamiliar. This wasn't his world of board meetings and profit margins. This was something real, something that mattered. When it was time to leave, Logan shook his hand again. Will you come back tomorrow, Zane? Emily's making meatloaf, and it's almost as good as Dad's was. Logan, Emily said softly, Zane has his own life. He can't just... I'd love to come back, Zane interrupted. If that's okay with you? Emily's smile could have powered the city. More than okay. Walking back into the evening air, Zane realized he was in trouble. He'd started this experiment to test his employees' humanity. But somewhere along the way, Emily and Logan Turner had begun to test his, and he was failing spectacularly. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He paced his penthouse apartment, Emily's words echoing in his head. They barely looked into it, just decided Dad had made some mistake with the gas lines and moved on. Anderson House, the restaurant that had marked the beginning of their empire's expansion, purchased just months before his mother's death. He remembered his father's excitement about the acquisition, the plans for renovation, the pressure to open quickly to recoup their investment. By 3 a.m., Ethan found himself in his home office, accessing the company's digital archives with administrative privileges his father didn't know he had. The private investigator who'd helped create his homeless persona had also taught him a few tricks about electronic surveillance, skills that were about to prove invaluable. The Anderson House files were buried deep in the corporate database, marked with security classifications that would have kept out casual browsers. But Ethan wasn't casual, and he wasn't browsing. He was hunting. The first documents were routine. Purchase agreements, architectural plans, permit applications. Everything looked normal until he found the construction reports from 7 years ago. The timeline made his stomach clench. David Turner had died 3 weeks after being promoted to head chef, just days before the restaurant's grand reopening. Ethan pulled up the incident report, his hands trembling slightly as he read. Incident summary. Kitchen fire resulted in death of employee David Turner, 35 head chef. Preliminary investigation suggests gas line malfunction caused by employee negligence in equipment operation. No criminal charges filed. Insurance claim, 2.3 meters. Case closed. The report was signed by Fire Marshal Stevens and countersigned by Thomas Anderson himself. But something felt wrong about the language. Too clean, too definitive for what should have been a complex investigation. Digging deeper, Ethan found the insurance investigator's preliminary notes, documents that should never have been preserved in the corporate files. His blood went cold as he read. Day 1. Electrical systems show signs of prolonged overload. Wiring appears substandard for commercial kitchen demands. Day 2. Gas line installation predates current safety codes. Multiple violations noted. Day 3. Building contractor, Meridian Construction, reports pressure from Anderson Corp to accelerate timeline despite incomplete safety inspections. Day 4. Meeting with Thomas Anderson and legal team. Advised to focus investigation on employee error rather than systemic failures. Day 5. Final report amended per Anderson legal guidance. Ethan stared at the screen, his father's betrayal hitting him like a physical blow. They had known. They had known the kitchen was unsafe, and they'd let David Turner die rather than delay their opening. But it got worse. Buried in a subfolder marked Personnel Actions, Ethan found the employment records for Anderson House. Brian Richards' name jumped out at him, the same Brian Richards who now managed the Golden Rose, who'd called Emily's father street trash just days ago. 7 years ago, Brian Richards had been the assistant manager at Anderson House. According to his personnel file, he'd been the supervisor on duty the night David Turner died. Ethan's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up Richards' original statement to investigators. Employee Turner seemed agitated during evening prep. Mentioned concerns about kitchen equipment but refused to specify details. I advised him to follow standard procedures. When the incident occurred, I was in the front office handling cash deposits. I heard the explosion and immediately called 911. But that wasn't the statement that made Ethan's blood boil. Hidden in the legal files, He found Richard's original deposition to company lawyers, a deposition that told a very different story. Turner had been complaining about the electrical system for weeks, said the new equipment was overloading circuits that hadn't been upgraded. He asked me to contact management about safety concerns multiple times. I told him to mind his own business and do his job. The night he died, he came to me again, said he smelled gas, and wanted to shut down the kitchen until morning. I told him absolutely not. We had a VIP party the next night, and Mr. Anderson had made it clear that nothing was to interfere with our opening schedule. Turner went back to the kitchen, muttering about doing what's right. 20 minutes later, the whole back wall was in flames. Ethan leaned back in his chair, his entire worldview crumbling. His father hadn't just covered up an accident. He'd actively silenced someone trying to prevent it. And Brian Richards, the man who'd failed to act on David Turner's warnings, had been rewarded with a promotion to manage their flagship restaurant. The cruelest irony was that Emily worked for her father's killer every single day, serving customers in the company that had destroyed her family and never looked back. But there was more. Digging through the financial records, Ethan found payments that made his stomach turn. $50,000 to Fire Marshal Stevens, listed as consulting fees. $75,000 to the insurance investigator, marked as expedited processing. $25,000 to Meridian Construction, labeled as confidentiality agreement. His father had bought silence from everyone involved, ensuring that David Turner's death would be blamed on the victim rather than the system that had failed him. Ethan printed everything, his hands shaking with rage and guilt. Every page felt like evidence of his family's sins, proof that the empire he'd inherited was built on lies and covered in blood. His phone buzzed, a text from his father. "Where are you? Board meeting in 1 hour. Don't make me look for you." For a moment, Ethan considered going, walking into that boardroom, confronting Thomas Anderson with the evidence, demanding answers. But something held him back. Maybe cowardice. Maybe the need to understand the full scope of what had happened before he acted. Instead, he texted back, "Family emergency. Can't make it." The response was immediate. "What emergency? You don't have family besides me." The words hit harder than they should have, because Thomas was right. Ethan had no one, no siblings, no mother, no close friends who saw him as anything more than a useful connection. The only people who'd shown him genuine warmth in years were a waitress and her autistic brother, and he'd lied to them about everything. Another text. "This better not be about some homeless crusade. I won't tolerate any more of your mother's bleeding heart nonsense." Ethan turned off his phone and returned to the documents. There had to be more. Some evidence that would definitively prove what had happened, something that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. He found it in the architectural files, building inspection reports that had been falsified, safety certifications that had been backdated, and most damning of all, an email chain between Thomas Anderson and the city building commissioner Anderson. "Need those final inspections signed off by Friday. We're announcing the opening Monday, Commissioner. Tom, the electrical isn't up to code. Meridian's cutting corners. Anderson, how much to make it up to code? Commissioner, 75 KLA should cover any oversights in the paperwork. Anderson, done. Wire transfer going out this afternoon." The timestamp on the final email was 3 days before David Turner died. Ethan's vision blurred with rage. His father hadn't just covered up the crime. He'd orchestrated it. Every safety violation, every ignored warning, every bribed official had contributed to David Turner's death. And Emily thought it was her father's fault. The weight of that knowledge crushed him. She blamed herself for not fighting harder, for being just a grieving kid that nobody listened to. She had no idea that she'd been right all along, that her father had died trying to do the right thing. Ethan spent the rest of the morning documenting everything, creating copies of files that his father had probably forgotten existed. With each page, his resolve hardened. This wasn't just about corporate malfeasance anymore. This was about justice for a man who died trying to protect people, and about the family he'd left behind. But how could he tell Emily the truth without revealing who he was? How could he explain that he'd known her for days, had watched her struggle to support her family, had let her blame her father's death on negligence when he'd had the power to clear David Turner's name all along? The answer came to him slowly, painfully. He couldn't tell her. Not yet. First, he had to understand everything. gather all the evidence, build an unshakable case. Then he had to find a way to make things right without destroying the fragile trust they'd built, because somewhere in the last few days, Emily Turner had become more than just a test subject in his social experiment. She'd become the most important person in his world, and the one person he was most likely to lose when the truth came out. His phone rang. Margaret's voice was tense. "Mr. Anderson, your father is very upset about the missed meeting. He's demanding to know where you are. Tell him I'm learning about the family business," Ethan said. "Tell him I'm finally understanding what it really means to be an Anderson." Over the next 2 weeks, Zane became a fixture at the Golden Rose during Emily's shifts. He'd arrive in the quiet afternoon hours, nurse a coffee for hours, and listen to Emily talk about her life, her dreams, her fears. With each conversation, the weight of his deception grew heavier. But so did something else, something he'd never experienced before. He was falling in love. "You're different today," Emily said, sliding into the booth across from him. It was a Thursday afternoon, and the restaurant was nearly empty, except for an elderly couple sharing dessert in the corner. "Different how?" "Sadder, like you're carrying something heavy." Emily studied his face with those perceptive eyes that seemed to see straight through him. "Want to talk about it?" Ethan, Zane, wanted desperately to tell her everything. About the documents he'd found, about her father's real heroism, about the guilt that was eating him alive. Instead, he deflected. "Just thinking about family stuff. Lost some people along the way, you know." "I do know." Emily's hand moved across the table, her fingers briefly touching his. The contact sent electricity up his arm. "Loss has a way of changing everything about how you see the world. Your father, among others." Emily's smile was wistful, but also good changes. "Losing Dad taught me what really matters. Family, kindness, making every moment count." "What was he like? Really like? I mean," Emily's face lit up. The way it always did when she talked about David Turner. "He was magical in the kitchen. I know that sounds silly, but he could take the simplest ingredients and turn them into something that would make you cry with happiness. Logan was obsessed with watching him cook. Logan mentioned that he remembers all the recipes. Every single one. Sometimes I think Logan keeps Dad alive better than I do." Emily's voice grew soft. "He'll be cooking dinner tonight when I get home. Probably something elaborate that he learned watching Dad when he was 8 years old. That must be comforting, having those memories preserved." "It is, but it's also..." Emily hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "Can I tell you something? Something I've never told anyone?" Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. "Of course. Sometimes I'm angry at him. At Dad." The words came out in a rush, as if she'd been holding them back for years. "I know that's terrible, and I know he didn't choose to die. But sometimes I get so angry that he left us, that he put us in this position. That's not terrible. That's human. Mom needed him. Logan needed him. I needed him." Tears gathered in Emily's eyes. "And instead, I'm 27 years old, working double shifts, watching my mother deteriorate, and trying to raise a teenager who sees the world differently than everyone else. Some days I feel like I'm drowning." Without thinking, Ethan reached across the table and took her hand properly this time. Her fingers were cold, calloused from years of hard work, but they fit perfectly in his. "You're not drowning," he said quietly. "You're swimming upstream, and you're stronger than you know." Emily looked at their joined hands, then back at his face. "When did you become so wise?" "Maybe when I met someone who showed me what real strength looks like." The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility. Emily's cheeks flushed pink, and Ethan realized that somewhere in the last 2 weeks, the careful distance they'd maintained had evaporated completely. "Zane, Emily, table 6 needs their check." Brian Richards' voice cut through the moment like a blade. Emily jerked her hand back, the spell broken, and hurried away to handle her tables. But when she returned 20 minutes later, something had shifted between them. "Walk with me?" she asked as her shift ended. "I mean, if you don't have anywhere else to be." They strolled through the downtown streets as evening settled over the city. Emily had changed out of her uniform into jeans and a sweater that brought out the gold flecks in her brown eyes. Walking beside her, Ethan felt more like himself than he had in months, and simultaneously more like a fraud than ever. "Can I ask you something?" Emily said as they paused at a crosswalk. Shoot. What did you do before? In your management job? I mean, you never really said. Panic fluttered in Ethan's chest. Corporate stuff, acquisitions, development projects. Pretty boring, really. Boring people don't ask the kinds of questions you ask. What kinds of questions? Emily smiled. Yesterday you asked me what I would do if money weren't an obstacle. The day before that, you wanted to know what I thought about when I couldn't sleep. Most people ask where I'm from, or what my favorite movie is. And what do you think about when you can't sleep? See, you're doing it again, Emily laughed. The sound like music in the evening air. I think about Dad mostly. Wonder what he'd say about the choices I'm making. Whether he'd be proud of how I'm handling things. He would be, Ethan said with absolute certainty. Anyone would be proud to have you as a daughter. They'd reached Emily's apartment building, a modest complex that had seen better decades. She hesitated at the entrance, her key in her hand. Would you like to meet them? Mom and Logan? I mean, Logan's been asking about you every day and Mom's curious about my mysterious friend. Every rational part of Ethan's brain screamed warnings. Meeting Emily's family would deepen this deception, make the eventual revelation even more devastating. But looking at her hopeful face, he couldn't bring himself to say no. I'd be honored. The Turner apartment was small but spotlessly clean, filled with the warm smell of something delicious cooking. Logan bounded to the door the moment they entered. Zane, perfect timing, I'm making Dad's famous chicken marsala. Want to help me finish the sauce? Before Ethan could respond, he was being dragged into the tiny kitchen where Logan had somehow created a restaurant-quality meal, despite working with equipment that belonged in a museum. Logan, let Zane get settled first, Emily called, but she was laughing. It's okay, Ethan said, genuinely amazed by the teenager's precision. This smells incredible, Logan. Dad taught me that cooking is chemistry and art combined. The measurements have to be exact, but you also have to feel when something's right. Logan handed him a wooden spoon. Taste the sauce, tell me what it needs. Ethan tasted the marsala sauce and was transported. It was complex, layered, absolutely perfect. I don't think it needs anything. This is restaurant quality, Logan. Really? Logan beamed with pride. Emily says that too, but she's my sister, so she has to be nice. I do not have to be nice, Emily protested from the doorway. I choose to be nice because you're an amazing cook. Emily, a weak voice called from another room. Is that your friend? Coming, Mom. Emily disappeared down a short hallway, returning with a woman who moved carefully with the aid of a walker, even with the obvious effects of her illness. Maria Turner had the same warm eyes as her daughter. You must be Zane, Maria said, settling into a well-worn armchair. Emily's told me so much about you. All good things, I hope. She says you're kind, in my experience. That's the only thing that really matters about a person. Over dinner, Ethan listened to the Turner family dynamic with a mixture of admiration and heartbreak. Logan recounted his school day with encyclopedic detail. Emily gently redirected when his monologues went too long, and Maria offered quiet wisdom that reminded him achingly of his own mother. Dad would have loved this, Logan said suddenly, apropos of nothing. He always said the best meals happen when you invite strangers to become friends. Logan, Emily said softly. Maybe Zane doesn't want to hear. I'd love to hear about your father, Ethan interrupted. If you want to share. For the next hour, he listened to stories about David Turner, his passion for cooking, his terrible jokes, his devotion to his family. With each story, Ethan's guilt deepened, but so did his understanding of what his father's cover-up had truly stolen from this family. When it was time to leave, Maria insisted on sending him home with leftovers. You're too thin, she declared, pressing a container into his hands. Emily, make sure he eats. Walking back to the street, Emily was unusually quiet. Your family is amazing, Ethan said. They liked you, Logan especially. He doesn't warm up to new people easily. And you? Did you like having me there? Emily stopped walking and turned to face him. In the glow of the streetlight, she looked vulnerable and beautiful, and completely beyond his reach. Zane, I need to tell you something. His heart stopped. Had she figured out who he was? I'm falling for you, she said quietly. I know that's crazy. We've only known each other a few weeks, and our situations are complicated. but I can't help it. The words hit him like a physical blow. She was falling for a man who didn't exist, built on lies that would destroy her when the truth came out. Emily, I know it's not practical. I know you have your own problems to solve, and I have responsibilities that aren't going anywhere, but I needed you to know how I feel. Standing there in the lamplight, looking at this extraordinary woman who'd opened her heart to him based on a complete fabrication, Ethan Anderson made the worst decision of his life. He kissed her, and for one perfect, terrible moment, the lies didn't matter. Nothing mattered except the way Emily melted into his arms, the way she kissed him back with 7 years of loneliness and hope, the way she whispered his fake name against his lips like a prayer when they broke apart. Emily's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "This is dangerous," she whispered. "I know, but I don't want to stop." Neither do I. As Ethan walked back to his motel room that night, he carried the taste of Emily's kiss and the weight of his deception in equal measure. He was in love with a woman whose father he'd failed to save, whose trust he'd gained through lies, whose heart he was destined to break. And God help him, he didn't know how to stop. For 3 blissful weeks, Ethan lived in 2 worlds. By day, he was Zane Mitchell, a homeless man who'd found love and purpose in Emily Turner's gentle hands. By night, he was Ethan Anderson, gathering evidence and building a case that would bring down his own father. The double life was killing him slowly. Every morning, he'd shed his expensive clothes for worn denim and faded t-shirts. Every evening, he'd return to his penthouse and stare at the growing pile of documents that proved Thomas Anderson's guilt. The evidence was overwhelming now, enough to send his father to prison and clear David Turner's name forever. But first, he had to tell Emily the truth. He owed her that much before he destroyed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon when his carefully constructed world began to crumble. Emily was training a new server, showing her the computer system, when her phone buzzed with a news alert. "Oh my God," she breathed, staring at the screen. "What is it?" Zane asked, looking up from the newspaper he'd been pretending to read. Emily's face had gone white. "There's been an accident. A kitchen fire at one of the Anderson restaurants downtown. 2 people are in the hospital." The blood drained from Ethan's face. "Which restaurant?" "The Meridian Grill." Emily's hands were shaking. "It says here that preliminary reports suggest faulty electrical wiring, just like..." She couldn't finish the sentence. Ethan's phone was buzzing frantically in his pocket. Probably Margaret trying to reach him about the crisis. But he couldn't answer it. Not in front of Emily. "Are you okay?" he asked, reaching for her hand. "I'm fine, it's just... it brings back memories." Emily looked at him with eyes full of old pain. "What if those people die? What if their families go through what we went through?" "They won't," Ethan said with fierce certainty. "This time people will ask the right questions. This time, the truth will come out." Emily studied his face, something flickering in her expression. "You sound very sure about that." Before Ethan could respond, Emily's phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and frowned. "I have to take this, it's Mom's doctor." She stepped away, her voice low and urgent. While Emily was distracted, Ethan pulled out his phone and quickly scanned the messages. The situation was worse than he'd feared. The electrical system at Meridian Grill had been installed by the same contractor who'd worked on Anderson House 7 years ago. If investigators dug deep enough, they'd find the same pattern of bribes and cover-ups. His father would try to bury this too. Emily returned, her face strained. "I have to go. Mom's having a bad day. And Logan's school called. He's having a meltdown about the schedule change for tomorrow. Of course, do you need help with anything?" "No, but thank you." Emily grabbed her purse and jacket. "Will I see you tomorrow?" "Absolutely." She kissed him quickly, a gesture that had become natural over the past weeks, but still sent electricity through his entire body. "Be safe, okay?" After Emily left, Ethan sat alone in the restaurant, his mind racing. He needed to act fast, before his father could orchestrate another cover-up, before more people got hurt. But first, he had to figure out how to tell Emily who he really was without losing her forever. His phone rang. Thomas Anderson's name flashed on the screen. "Where the hell are you?" His father's voice was sharp with anger. "I've been trying to reach you for hours. I heard about the fire." "Then you know we have a situation. I need you at the office now. We're going into damage control mode. Maybe we should focus on making sure those people get the medical care they need." Jesus Christ, Ethan. When did you become such a bleeding heart? We'll handle the medical bills, obviously, but we need to control the narrative before some ambulance-chasing lawyer starts digging into our safety protocols. Ethan closed his eyes. Even now, even with people in the hospital, his father was thinking about liability rather than responsibility. What if we told the truth for once? The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several seconds. The truth. Thomas's voice was dangerously quiet. What exactly do you think the truth is? That we've been cutting corners on safety for years? That people have died because we care more about profit margins than human lives? I don't know where this is coming from, but you need to get your head straight. We're not discussing this over the phone. Office now. The line went dead. Ethan stared at his phone, then made a decision that would change everything. Instead of going to Anderson Tower, he drove to the university library, where he could access computers that weren't monitored by corporate IT. For the next 4 hours, he uploaded every document he'd found to a secure server, creating multiple backup copies. Then he drafted a comprehensive report detailing 7 years of corporate malfeasance, starting with David Turner's death and ending with today's fire. By the time he finished, it was nearly midnight. His phone had been buzzing constantly. His father, Margaret, the legal team, the board of directors, everyone wanted to know where he was, what he was doing, why he wasn't playing his role in the latest cover-up. He turned off his phone and drove to Emily's apartment building. The lights were still on in her unit. Through the thin walls, he could hear Logan's voice reciting something, probably recipes, his way of self-soothing when anxiety got too high. Emily appeared at the window, silhouetted against the warm light from within. She looked tired but beautiful, her hair loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back in its usual ponytail. For a moment, Ethan let himself imagine a different life, one where he'd met her honestly, where they could build something real together without the foundation of lies. But that life didn't exist. It never had. His phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. Your father is looking for you. Might want to lay low for a while. Friend Ethan frowned at the message, but before he could process it fully, his blood went cold. Across the street, parked under a broken streetlight, sat a black sedan with corporate plates. His father's security team, Thomas Anderson, had found him. Panic flooded his system. If his father's people were watching Emily's building, they already knew about his relationship with her. They probably had photographs, records of every visit, every conversation. Emily was in danger. Ethan was typing a warning text when Emily's apartment door opened. She stepped onto the small balcony, probably taking out trash or getting some air. In the dim light, she looked directly at his car. Their eyes met across the distance. Emily's expression shifted from surprise to confusion, to something approaching recognition. She disappeared back inside, and moments later, Ethan's phone buzzed with a call from her number. Zane, is that you in the blue car? Emily, I can explain. Explain what? Why you're sitting outside my building at midnight? Why you have a car when you told me you were homeless? Ethan's world tilted. She knew, somehow. She knew. Where are you calling from? He asked. My neighbor's apartment. Zane, who are you really? The question hung in the air like a blade. Ethan looked up at Emily's building, then at the sedan full of his father's people, then back at the phone in his hand. My name is Ethan Anderson, he said quietly, and I'm the son of the man who killed your father. The silence that followed was deafening. Emily, are you there? Anderson? Her voice was flat, emotionless. You're an Anderson. Yes. You've been lying to me for weeks. Yes. Everything you told me. Your name, your situation, your feelings. All of it was lies. No. The word came out sharp, desperate. My feelings for you are real. Everything else was a lie. But that was real. Get away from my building. Emily, please let me explain. Get away from my building or I'm calling the police. The line went dead. Ethan sat in his car, staring at Emily's darkened windows, feeling his heart break in real time. He'd known this moment would come, had prepared for it. But the reality was worse than anything he'd imagined. Through his rearview mirror, he saw the corporate sedan's headlights flicker on. His father's people were moving. Ethan started his engine and pulled away from the curb, leading the surveillance team away from Emily's building. As he drove through the empty streets, his phone buzzed with a text from Emily's number. Don't ever contact me again. 24 hours ago. He'd been in love and planning to expose his father's crimes. Now he was alone, discovered, and racing against time to prevent another cover-up. But for the first time in his life, Ethan Anderson knew exactly what he had to do. The truth was going to come out, even if it destroyed everything he'd ever cared about. Especially if it destroyed everything he'd ever cared about. Ethan didn't go home that night. Instead, he drove to a 24-hour diner on the outskirts of the city, the kind of place where truckers and insomniacs gathered over coffee that could strip paint. He ordered black coffee and pie he couldn't taste, and spent the dark hours before dawn making the most important decision of his life. By sunrise, he knew what he had to do. At 8 a.m. sharp, Ethan walked into the offices of the Washington Tribune, carrying a briefcase full of evidence that would destroy his father and expose 7 years of corporate corruption. The investigative journalist, Sarah Chen, had won Pulitzers for her work on corporate malfeasance. If anyone could ensure the story was told properly, it was her. "Mr. Anderson," Chen said, studying him with sharp eyes across her cluttered desk. "I have to admit, I was surprised by your call. It's not often that heirs to billion-dollar empires walk into newsrooms with boxes of evidence against their own families. It's not often that heirs discover their families are built on murder," Ethan replied, opening the briefcase. For the next 3 hours, Ethan laid out everything. David Turner's death, the bribes, the cover-ups, the pattern of safety violations that had led to yesterday's fire. Chen took notes with the intensity of a surgeon, occasionally asking for clarification, but mostly just absorbing the scope of the corruption. "This is extraordinary," she said finally, "but I have to ask, what's your endgame here? You're not just exposing your father. You're destroying your own inheritance, your own future." "Good," Ethan said without hesitation. "I don't want an inheritance built on dead bodies. And the personal cost? This will be front-page news for weeks. Your life as you know it is over." Ethan thought of Emily's face when she'd realized who he was, the betrayal and disgust in her voice. "My life as I knew it ended last night." Chen leaned forward. "There's something else, isn't there? This isn't just about corporate responsibility. This is personal. David Turner left behind a daughter," Ethan said quietly. "She's been carrying the guilt of her father's death for 7 years, thinking he was careless, that it was his fault. She deserves to know the truth. You care about her, more than anything, and she doesn't know you're doing this. She never wants to see me again, but that doesn't matter. What matters is justice." Chen studied him for a long moment. "I'll need to verify everything, run down sources, get confirmation from multiple angles. This kind of story has to be bulletproof. How long? A week, maybe 2. Your father will try to suppress this the moment he realizes what's happening. Let me worry about my father," as if summoned by the mention of his name. Ethan's phone rang. Thomas Anderson's name flashed on the screen. "I have to take this," Ethan told Chen, stepping into the hallway. "Where the hell are you?" Thomas's voice was ice-cold fury. "You missed the emergency board meeting. We're dealing with a crisis, and my own son is nowhere to be found. I'm handling the crisis in my own way, by disappearing, by ignoring your responsibilities. Jesus Christ, Ethan. Sometimes I think your mother's death scrambled your brains." The casual cruelty of the comment hit Ethan like a physical blow. "Don't you dare bring her into this. She's been dead for 7 years. It's time you stopped using her memory as an excuse for weakness." "Weakness?" Ethan's voice rose despite his efforts to stay calm. "Is that what you call having a conscience?" "I call it being naive. The world doesn't run on good intentions, son. It runs on power, and power requires difficult decisions. Like bribing building inspectors, like covering up safety violations, like letting innocent people die for the sake of an opening deadline." The silence that followed was deafening. "I don't know what you think you know," Thomas said finally, his voice deadly quiet. "But you're walking into dangerous territory. Come home now." "I can't do that." "Can't or won't? Both? Then you're no son of mine." The line went dead. Ethan stared at his phone, feeling oddly light. For the first time in his adult life, he was free. Free from his father's expectations. Free from the weight of an empire built on lies. Free to do what was right regardless of the cost. When he returned to Chen's office, she was already making calls. "My editor wants to fast-track this," she said, covering the phone with her hand. "If half of what you've shown me checks out, this is the biggest corporate scandal of the decade. Over the next week, Ethan lived in a strange limbo. He stayed in cheap motels, paid with cash, and avoided all his usual haunts. Thomas Anderson had unleashed his considerable resources to find his wayward son, but Ethan had learned a thing or two about staying invisible during his weeks as Zane Mitchell. He wanted desperately to contact Emily, to explain everything, to make her understand that his feelings had been real, even if everything else was a lie. But he respected her wishes. She'd asked him to stay away, and he would, at least until the truth came out, and David Turner's name was cleared on Thursday. Chen called with an update. The fire marshal who signed off on David Turner's death, Stevens, he's agreed to talk. Turns out his conscience has been eating at him for years. He's willing to go on record about the bribes. And Brian Richards, still working on him. Your father's people got to him first. But my sources say he's scared. If we can prove the pattern, he might flip to save himself. What about the building inspector who falsified the reports? Dead, heart attack 3 years ago. Convenient timing, if you ask me. Ethan closed his eyes. Even from beyond the grave, his father's corruption reached out to complicate their investigation. But we have enough, Chen continued. Documented payments, email trails, testimony from multiple sources. Your father's going down, and he knows it. How do you know he knows? Because he's hired the best crisis management firm in the city, and his lawyers have been calling every news outlet in town, threatening lawsuits if anyone publishes libelous and unfounded accusations against a respected businessman. Despite everything, Ethan felt a stab of something that might have been grief. Thomas Anderson was still his father, the man who'd raised him, who'd taught him to tie his shoes and ride a bike. But that man had also destroyed the Turner family and covered it up without a second thought. When does the story run? Sunday's front page. I wanted to give you a heads up. Once this goes live, there's no going back. I know. Your father will try to paint you as unstable. Maybe claim you're having some kind of breakdown. Are you prepared for that? Ethan thought about Emily's face when she'd realized who he was, about Logan's innocent trust, about Maria Turner's quiet dignity in the face of overwhelming loss. I'm prepared for whatever comes. There's something else, Chen said. I've been looking into the Turner family for background. You understand, Ethan? Did you know that Emily Turner works at one of your restaurants? Yes. Did you know that she works for Brian Richards, the same man who was supposed to be supervising her father the night he died? The irony was so cruel it took Ethan's breath away. I know. She's been serving customers in the same company that killed her father, working for the man who could have prevented it. Does she know? No. And she can't know. Not yet. Not until the story breaks and she learns the truth the right way. That's going to be hard on her. Everything about this is going to be hard on her, but it's the only way to give her family justice. Friday evening. Ethan sat in his latest motel room, staring at the ceiling and thinking about Emily. Tomorrow night, she'd be serving dinner at the Golden Rose, probably worried about her mother's medical bills, probably helping Logan with his homework, probably trying not to think about the homeless man who'd lied to her about everything. In 36 hours, her world would explode again. She'd learn that her father was a hero, that her family had been destroyed by corporate greed, that the man she'd trusted with her heart was connected to all of it. She'd probably hate him more than ever, but David Turner's name would be cleared, and maybe that would be enough. Maybe knowing that her father had died trying to do the right thing would give Emily some peace, even if it came at the cost of everything else. Ethan's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Last chance to walk away. Some secrets are better left buried. A friend, he deleted the message without responding. Sunday morning couldn't come fast enough. 6 months later, Ethan Anderson no longer existed in any meaningful way. The man who sat in the cramped office above a failing bakery on the east side of town bore little resemblance to the billionaire heir who'd once commanded boardrooms and lived in penthouse luxury. His clothes were simple. His hands bore the calluses of honest work, and his bank account held exactly $2,047. Every penny he'd earned through his own labor. The Washington Tribune expose had done exactly what Ethan had hoped it would. Thomas Anderson was in federal prison awaiting trial on charges of bribery, conspiracy, and negligent homicide. Brian Richards had been fired, prosecuted, and was now serving 18 months for his role in covering up David Turner's death. The Anderson restaurant empire had been sold off piece by piece, the proceeds going to victims' families and safety retrofitting across the industry. And David Turner had been posthumously cleared of all responsibility for his own death, officially recognized as a whistleblower who died trying to protect others. Ethan had given his first interview to Sarah Chen 2 weeks after the story broke, sitting in a courthouse lobby while his father's lawyers filed motion after motion to suppress evidence and discredit witnesses. "I want people to understand that this isn't about revenge," he'd told her. "This is about justice for David Turner and everyone else who was failed by a system that prioritized profit over human life." "What about your personal life?" Chen had asked. "The Turner family hasn't spoken publicly, but sources say you had a relationship with David Turner's daughter. How has this affected that?" "Emily Turner deserves her privacy," Ethan had replied. "She's been through enough because of my family's actions. The last thing she needs is to be dragged into a media circus. But you care about her. I care about her enough to stay out of her life." That had been the truth 6 months ago, and it remained the truth now. Ethan had kept his promise. He hadn't contacted Emily, hadn't tried to explain himself, hadn't asked for forgiveness he didn't deserve. He'd seen her once, from across a street downtown, and had ducked into an alley before she could spot him. She'd looked good, healthier somehow, less burdened. The life insurance payout from her father's reclassification as a workplace safety victim had been substantial, enough to get her mother proper treatment, and Logan the specialized schooling he needed. Emily had quit the Golden Rose immediately after the story broke and was reportedly taking college classes while working part-time at a nonprofit that helped families of workplace accident victims. Ethan was glad she was rebuilding her life. He just wished he could be part of it. "Chef Anderson, the delivery truck is here." Ethan looked up from the menu he'd been revising to see Marcus, one of his line cooks, standing in the doorway. Marcus was a formerly homeless veteran who'd answered Ethan's Craigslist ad looking for kitchen staff with non-traditional backgrounds. Like most of Ethan's employees, he was getting a second chance at Aurora, the restaurant Ethan had built from nothing in a neighborhood that most people had written off. "Thanks, Marcus, I'll be right there." Aurora occupied the ground floor of a building that had once housed a check-cashing business and a liquor store. The space was small, the equipment was second-hand, and the decor was whatever Ethan and his team could afford or salvage, but it was theirs, built without compromises or corporate oversight, staffed by people who understood what it meant to need a genuine opportunity. The menu was simple but elegant, comfort food elevated by proper technique and quality ingredients. Ethan had learned to cook during his months in hiding, working in restaurant kitchens under assumed names, discovering that creating something beautiful with his hands was more satisfying than any board meeting he'd ever attended. "Chef, we've got a problem with tonight's special," called Rosa. Aurora's sous chef and a single mother of 3 who'd been blacklisted from upscale restaurants after taking too many sick days to care for her kids. "What kind of problem?" "The fish supplier shorted us. We've only got enough halibut for maybe 20 plates, but we're booked for 47 covers tonight." Ethan considered their options. 6 months ago, he would have made a phone call and had premium fish delivered within an hour, cost be damned. Now, he had to be creative. "What do we have in the walk-in?" "Plenty of chicken, some really nice pork shoulder, vegetables for days." "Perfect. We're changing the special to braised pork shoulder with root vegetables. Family-style presentation, shareable portions, marketed as Sunday dinner at Aurora, comfort food that brings people together." Rosa grinned. "I love it. Want me to update the boards?" "Please, and Rosa, let's make sure we save some for the staff meal. We're family too." This was what Ethan loved most about Aurora. The flexibility, the creativity, the sense that they were all in it together. His staff knew his story, knew he'd given up a fortune to expose the truth about corporate corruption, but they also knew he showed up every day at 5 a.m. to prep vegetables, that he covered shifts when people got sick, that he'd personally guaranteed their health insurance when the restaurant couldn't afford full coverage yet. "Ethan," another voice, this one hesitant and uncertain. He turned to see a young woman standing in the kitchen doorway, holding a folder and looking nervous. She was maybe 22, with short dark hair and eyes that reminded him painfully of someone else. "Can I help you?" "I'm Jessica Martinez. I'm a journalism student at the university, and I'm writing a piece about Aurora for my class, about second chances and community building. Would you have a few minutes to talk?" Ethan had given very few interviews since the initial media storm, preferring to let Aurora speak for itself. but something about Jessica's earnest expression reminded him of why he'd started this place. "Sure, but I need to warn you. It's not a very exciting story, just a guy trying to do the right thing with the skills he has." Jessica smiled. "Sometimes those are the best stories." They sat at a corner table while the kitchen hummed with dinner prep around them. Jessica asked thoughtful questions about Aurora's mission, about hiring practices, about the challenges of running a restaurant on principle rather than pure profit. "Can I ask about David Turner?" Jessica said finally. "I know his daughter worked for your family's company, and I know exposing the truth about his death was a major factor in your decision to come forward. Do you ever regret the way things played out?" Ethan was quiet for a long moment, watching Marcus carefully plate appetizers, while Rosa seasoned the evening soup. "I regret that it took me so long to act," he said finally. "I regret that Mr. Turner died because of my family's negligence. I regret that his family suffered for 7 years believing he was at fault. But coming forward, telling the truth, no, I don't regret that. Have you had any contact with the Turner family since the story broke?" "No. They deserve their privacy, and they deserve to heal without having to deal with me." "But you named a dish after David Turner, didn't you? It's on tonight's menu." Ethan nodded toward the specials board. "Where David's Dream, a perfectly executed chicken marsala based on Logan's recreation of his father's recipe, was listed alongside the evening's other offerings. Logan Turner taught me that recipe," Ethan said quietly. "His father created it, and Logan kept it alive through memory and love. I wanted to honor that. And if the Turners came here, if they saw that dish on the menu, I hope they'd know it comes from a place of respect. David Turner was a hero who died trying to protect people. His recipe deserves to be remembered." After Jessica left, Ethan threw himself into the dinner service. Aurora was busier than usual. Word was spreading about the little restaurant that served exceptional food while giving people second chances. Food critics had started to notice, and last week, a reviewer from the city paper had given them a glowing write-up that mentioned both the quality of the cuisine and the integrity of the mission. "Chef," Marcus called out during a brief lull. "Table 12 is asking if you'd come say hello. They're regulars, and they specifically requested to meet you." Ethan dried his hands and walked into the dining room, expecting to find familiar faces from the neighborhood. Instead, he stopped short at table 12. Emily Turner sat with her back to him, her dark hair now cut shorter, wearing a simple blue dress that brought out her eyes. Across from her sat Logan, taller than Ethan remembered but with the same intense focus as he studied the menu. And beside them, in a wheelchair but looking stronger than she had in months, was Maria Turner. Emily must have sensed his presence because she turned around, her eyes meeting his across the crowded restaurant. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Emily stood slowly, her expression unreadable. "Hello, Ethan," she said quietly. The restaurant seemed to fall silent around them, though Ethan knew the other diners were still talking, still eating, still living their lives. All he could see was Emily, looking at him without hatred for the first time in 6 months. "Hi," he managed, his voice rough with emotion. I didn't know you were coming. We didn't plan it," Emily said. "We were driving by, and Logan saw the menu board outside. He recognized one of the dishes." Logan looked up from his menu with a slow smile. "David's Dream? That's Dad's recipe. How did you know about Dad's recipe?" The question hung in the air between them, loaded with months of silence and unspoken truths. "You taught it to me," Ethan said simply. "A long time ago." The silence stretched between them like a bridge. Neither was sure they should cross. Other diners continued their conversations, unaware that the small drama playing out at table 12 would determine whether 6 months of careful distance had been worth the pain. Would you like to sit down?" Emily asked finally, gesturing to the empty chair at their table. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. "Are you sure? We came here to talk," Maria Turner said, speaking for the first time. Her voice was stronger than Ethan remembered, though she still looked fragile in her wheelchair. "We have things to say." Ethan sat slowly, acutely aware of the weight of this moment. Across the restaurant, his staff continued dinner service, but he could feel their protective eyes on him. They knew Emily's story, knew what her family meant to him, knew how much he'd sacrificed because he couldn't live with the lies anymore. "You look different," Logan observed with his characteristic directness. "Thinner, and your hands are different too. They have scars. Kitchen work," Ethan said, automatically hiding the small burns and cuts that came from learning to cook professionally. "I'm still figuring it out. Dad had hands like that," Logan continued. He said scars were a chef's education written on his skin. Emily flinched slightly at the memory, but her eyes never left Ethan's face. "Logan wanted to come here the moment he saw the menu. He's been talking about you for months. Talking about me. About Zane," Logan corrected. "Emily told me Zane was really you, but I didn't understand how that was possible. People can't be two different people." "Logan's right," Emily said quietly. "People can't be two different people, so which one were you really? The homeless man who ate my father's food, or the billionaire who exposed his own family?" The question cut deep, because Ethan had been asking himself the same thing for months. "I was both," he said finally. "The homeless man was who I wanted to be. The billionaire was who I was born to be. Neither felt real until I met your family." "That's not an answer," Emily said, though her tone wasn't unkind. "That's just more words." Maria Turner leaned forward slightly, her hands folded in her lap. "Ethan, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "When you were pretending to be homeless, when you were sitting in my daughter's restaurant eating my husband's food, what were you hoping to accomplish?" Ethan had prepared for this question, had rehearsed different versions of the truth, but sitting here, looking into the eyes of David Turner's widow, all his careful explanations crumbled. "I was trying to prove that poor people weren't worth caring about," he said, the honesty burning his throat. "I was angry about feeling guilty, and I wanted evidence that my father was right, that compassion was weakness, that the homeless were just looking for handouts." Emily's sharp intake of breath was audible. "You were testing us." "Yes. You came into our lives as an experiment." "Yes. And then..." Ethan looked around the restaurant he'd built, at the staff who'd become his family, at the simple space that had taught him more about himself than 28 years of privilege ever had. "And then Logan taught me to make chicken marsala. And your mother worried about whether I was eating enough, and you..." He met Emily's eyes. "You showed me what it looked like to choose kindness even when life had given you every reason not to." "Pretty words," Emily said, but her voice was softer now. "True words." Ethan reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, setting it carefully on the table between them. "I wrote this 6 months ago, right after the story broke. I've been carrying it around, hoping someday I'd have the courage to give it to you." Emily stared at the envelope but didn't touch it. "What is it?" "Everything I couldn't say when you asked me to stay away. Everything I should have said from the beginning." Logan reached for the envelope with characteristic curiosity, but Emily gently stopped him. "Not yet, Logan." "Why not? If it's for us, we should read it." "Because some letters can't be unread," Emily said, never taking her eyes off Ethan. "And I need to understand something first." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "The man who fed my family dinner, who listened to Logan's stories, who kissed me goodnight, was any of that real?" The question hit Ethan like a physical blow. Every moment with your family was the most real thing I'd ever experienced, even though it started as a lie. Especially because it started as a lie. Ethan's voice cracked slightly. "I'd spent my whole life being told that people like your family didn't matter, that poor people were poor because they deserved it. And then I met you, and everything I thought I knew about the world fell apart. But you kept lying. I kept lying because I was a coward, because I knew that the moment you learned who I really was, I'd lose the only thing that had ever made me feel human." Maria Turner had been listening quietly, but now she spoke. "Ethan, do you know what my husband said to me the night before he died?" Ethan's throat constricted. "No, ma'am. He said he was worried about the kitchen equipment, but nobody would listen to him. He said he felt like David going up against Goliath, but he had to try because people's lives were at stake." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "My husband died because he chose to do the right thing even when it was dangerous." "I know, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." "I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty," Maria continued. "I'm telling you this because David would want you to know that sometimes the hardest thing about doing what's right is that you have to do it alone." Emily looked between her mother and Ethan, something shifting in her expression. "You destroyed your entire life to tell the truth about Dad?" "It wasn't my life," Ethan said simply. It was just money and status built on other people's suffering. He gestured around Aurora. This is my life, and I have it because your father taught me what integrity looks like. Logan, who had been following the conversation with his usual intense focus, suddenly brightened. Can I see the kitchen? I want to know how you make Dad's recipe. The request was so unexpected, so purely Logan, that Emily actually smiled for the first time since they'd sat down. Logan, you can't just invite yourself into restaurant kitchens. Actually, Ethan said, standing up. I'd love to show him if that's okay with you. Emily hesitated, then nodded. Okay, but just for a few minutes. The Aurora kitchen was controlled chaos during dinner service, but Logan navigated it like he'd been born there. He watched Marcus plate appetizers with fascination, asked Rosa detailed questions about her braising technique, and studied the preparation for David's dream with the intensity of a scholar examining ancient texts. You're using too much wine, he told Ethan matter-of-factly. Dad always said the wine should enhance the chicken, not overpower it. You're absolutely right, Ethan said, adjusting the recipe. Would you like to help me make the next order? For the next 20 minutes, Logan directed Ethan through his father's recipe with perfect precision, correcting techniques and suggesting improvements with the authority of someone who had learned from a master. When the dish was finished, Logan tasted it carefully. Better, he declared. Now it tastes like Dad's. They returned to the dining room to find Emily reading the letter, tears streaming down her face. Maria was holding her daughter's free hand, her own eyes wet. You found all of this 6 months ago, Emily said, looking up from the pages. The evidence, the cover-up, the bribes. You had enough to clear Dad's name 6 months ago. Yes, but you waited. You investigated more, gathered more evidence, made sure the case was perfect before you went public. I couldn't risk your father's reputation on anything less than absolute proof. Emily set the letter down carefully, then stood and walked to where Ethan waited by the kitchen door. For a moment, they just looked at each other, 6 months of pain and silence stretching between them. I've hated you, she said quietly, for lying to me, for making me trust you, for being part of the family that destroyed mine. I know, but I've also missed you. Every day for 6 months. I've missed the man who held my hand and listened to my dreams and made me feel like I wasn't carrying the world alone. Ethan's vision blurred. Emily, that man was real, wasn't he? Even if everything else was a lie. The way you cared about my family was real. More real than anything I'd ever felt. Emily reached up and touched his face gently, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. Dad's name is cleared. His reputation is restored. Justice was served. Yes, because of you. Because it was the right thing to do. Emily smiled through her tears, and for the first time in 6 months, Ethan felt like he could breathe again. Logan, she called over her shoulder, do you think Dad would like this place? Logan looked around Aurora, at the mismatched tables, the staff working together like family, the simple menu that promised honest food made with care. He'd love it, Logan said with certainty. This is exactly the kind of place Dad dreamed about opening someday. Emily turned back to Ethan, her hand still touching his face. Then maybe it's time we stopped living in the past and started building something new. 3 months later, Aurora was booked solid for its first anniversary celebration. What had started as a small neighborhood restaurant had become something more, a symbol of second chances, honest work, and the power of choosing what's right over what's easy. Ethan stood in the kitchen, adjusting his tie for the 3rd time as he watched his staff put the finishing touches on what would be the most important evening of his life. Food critics, local politicians, former colleagues who'd stood by him during the scandal, and dozens of Aurora's regular customers would all be there. But there was only one table that mattered to him. Chef, you're making me nervous with all that fidgeting, Rosa called from the prep station where she was putting final garnishes on the evening's special appetizers. Everything's perfect. The food is perfect. You look perfect. Stop worrying. Easy for you to say, Marcus added with a grin. You're not about to. Marcus, Ethan warned, cutting him off before he could reveal the secret they'd all been keeping for weeks. The kitchen staff exchanged knowing looks. They'd been in on the plan from the beginning, had helped Ethan choose the right moment, the right words, the right way to honor everything the Turner family meant to him and Aurora. 5 minutes to service, Ethan announced, falling back into the familiar rhythm of restaurant preparation. whatever happened tonight. At least he'd have these last few minutes of certainty, of knowing exactly what needed to be done and how to do it. The dining room filled quickly as the sun set over the city. Ethan moved between the kitchen and the front of house, greeting guests, checking that everything met Aurora's standards. Sarah Chen was there, the journalist who'd helped him tell the truth about his father's crimes. She'd become a friend over the past year, one of the few people who understood the weight of the choice he'd made. "Big night," she said, catching him as he supervised the wine service. "You ready for this?" "As ready as anyone can be for something this important." She said yes to coming, which is a good sign. She said yes to a dinner invitation. That doesn't necessarily mean anything else. Sarah smiled. "Ethan, I've watched that woman look at you for the past 3 months. Trust me, it means something." At exactly 7 o'clock, Emily, Logan, and Maria Turner arrived. Emily wore a simple black dress that made her look elegant and radiant, while Logan had clearly taken special care with his appearance, wearing a button-down shirt and the serious expression he reserved for important occasions. Maria looked stronger than she had in years. The experimental treatment her family could now afford having slowed the progression of her disease significantly. Ethan seated them personally at the table he'd reserved, the same corner booth where he'd first sat as Zane Mitchell, where Emily had offered kindness to a stranger who didn't deserve it. "Good evening," he said formally, playing his role as restaurant owner rather than revealing the nervous energy threatening to overwhelm him. "Welcome to Aurora's anniversary celebration. Thank you for inviting us," Maria said with the gracious smile that reminded Ethan so much of Emily. "We wouldn't have missed it." Logan was already studying the special anniversary menu with intense focus. "You changed Dad's recipe again," he observed. "The wine reduction is different. You noticed that from just reading the description. I notice everything about Dad's recipes, but this change is good. It shows evolution. Dad always said the best dishes grow over time." Emily had been quiet since they arrived, but now she looked up at Ethan with an expression he couldn't quite read. "This place has become everything you said it would be. I'm proud of you." The simple words hit Ethan harder than any review or accolade ever could. "That means everything. Coming from you, Mr. Anderson." One of the servers approached hesitantly. "The mayor's table is asking if you could say a few words about Aurora's mission." "For the anniversary celebration?" Ethan glanced at Emily, who nodded encouragingly. "Go ahead. We'll be here when you get back." The impromptu speech went well. Ethan talked about second chances, about the importance of treating everyone with dignity, about building a business that served the community rather than exploiting it. He mentioned David Turner by name, crediting the man he'd never met with, teaching him the most important lesson of his life. That integrity meant doing what's right, even when it cost you everything. When he returned to the Turner table, their dinner had been served. David's dream prepared exactly as Logan had taught him, alongside Aurora's signature sides and a bottle of wine that cost more than Ethan used to spend on lunch. "That was beautiful," Emily said as he sat down. "Dad would have loved hearing his name honored that way. He deserves to be remembered." Logan took a careful bite of the chicken marsala, his expression serious as he evaluated the dish. "Perfect," he declared finally. "This tastes exactly like Dad made it. You've learned well. I had an excellent teacher." As the evening progressed, Ethan found himself relaxing into the conversation, falling back into the easy rhythm he'd discovered with Emily's family all those months ago. Logan told stories about his new school, where his unique perspective was valued rather than seen as a problem. Maria shared updates about her treatment and her part-time work at the foundation they'd established in David's memory. Emily talked about finishing her business degree and her plans to expand the workplace safety nonprofit she'd helped create. They were thriving, Ethan realized. The Turner family had taken the justice they'd finally received and used it to build something positive, something that honored David's memory while helping others avoid their tragedy. As the other diners began to leave, and the restaurant gradually emptied, Ethan knew it was time. His hands shook slightly as he signaled to Rosa, who nodded and disappeared into the kitchen. "There's something I wanted to show you," Ethan said, standing up. "Something special I've been working on for Aurora." He led them to the restaurant's small, private dining room, which had been transformed for the occasion. The walls were covered with photos, images of Aurora's staff, regular customers, community events they'd hosted, but the centerpiece was a beautiful display case containing a single item, a handwritten recipe card in David Turner's careful script. "Logan helped me track this down," Ethan explained, as Emily approached the case with tears in her eyes. "It was in your father's personal effects from Anderson House. Somehow it survived the fire. It's his original recipe for the dish we serve here." Emily pressed her hand to the glass, tracing the familiar handwriting. "This is his handwriting. This is really his. I wanted you to see it before I made it official," Ethan continued, his heart pounding so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. "I'm establishing the David Turner Memorial Foundation, funded by Aurora's profits, to provide scholarships for culinary students and safety training for restaurant workers." "Ethan," Maria whispered, "that's wonderful. But there's more." Ethan took a deep breath, knowing that everything depended on the next few minutes. "I want the foundation to be a family effort. I want it to honor not just David's memory, but the strength and grace his family showed in the face of tragedy." He turned to face Emily directly, pulling a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. The room fell completely silent except for Logan's sharp intake of breath. "Emily Turner," Ethan said, dropping to one knee in front of the woman who'd taught him what love really meant. "You saved my life in ways you'll never fully understand. You showed me what it means to choose kindness over cruelty, integrity over profit, love over fear." Emily's hands flew to her mouth as tears streamed down her face. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness for the lies I told, and I know I'll never be worthy of the love you've shown me. But I'm asking anyway. Will you marry me? Will you help me build something beautiful out of the ashes of our past?" For a moment that felt like eternity. Emily just stared at him. Then, slowly, she knelt down beside him, taking his face in her hands. "You already built something beautiful," she said through her tears. "You built Aurora. You built justice for my father. You built a second chance for both of us. Is that a yes?" Emily's smile was radiant, transforming her entire face. "That's a yes to forever." Logan's delighted laugh filled the room as Ethan slipped the ring onto Emily's finger, a simple diamond surrounded by smaller stones that caught the light like stars. "This is unexpected," Maria said, wiping her own tears. "But it's the best kind of unexpected." As Ethan stood and pulled Emily into his arms, kissing her in front of David Turner's recipe and surrounded by the family he'd found in the most unlikely way, he realized that sometimes the most beautiful love stories were the ones that began with heartbreak and chose to end with hope. Outside, Aurora's neon sign flickered against the evening sky, welcoming anyone who needed a second chance, a good meal, or proof that redemption was always possible for those brave enough to seek it. The unexpected had happened indeed. Two broken hearts had found a way to heal each other, and love had triumphed over every lie that had tried to destroy it.